Hello everyone, I wanted to welcome you to Katharine's Creatures. This is a series where I get to touch base and talk a little bit about various mythological beast, beings, and the like pulled from lore worldwide. And today, I always like to preface by saying that I'm not a linguist, so if I mispronounce anything along the way, I apologize in advance. And this is, for those who are interested, episode 87. So we are getting there. Now, I actually wanted to kind of talk about the phoenix. So we have already talked about kind of the Asian counterpart to the phoenix, or one of them, prior. But this one is a very iconic mythological creature. We've heard the name multiple times, probably either have seen it or read about it in various fantasy or movies, cinema, etc. But the phoenix kind of stems from ancient Greek, with links all the way to the Egyptian mythos and Persian mythos as well. But it is essentially, for anybody who might not know, a bird that has the ability to almost resurrect itself. The lore is that when a phoenix passes away or dies, a new one is born out of the ashes of its predecessor. Kind of like the original asexual reproduction for a mythological creature. But yeah, so one is always born out of the ashes of its predecessor. And the lores that from there kind of vary depending on the person writing about the phoenix. Some say that the prior bird, when they die, they burst into flames and like have this like flash of combustion. So they just essentially just incinerate themselves upon death. But that was not always the case, even though that one's most commonly utilized today. Herodotus is one of the more famous writers associated with the phoenix lore, and he's the one who actually attributed the phoenix, linking it to ancient Egypt, saying that there was a bird written about that could live about 500 years before it would die, and then out of its ashes would rise a new one. So about 500 years was Herodotus's best estimate for the length of a phoenix's life. But again, as most mythos goes, there is a debate about that, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's not a hard jump to make to understand this kind of concept of a bird that dies and resurrects itself repeatedly over time, and how years and years later, after ancient Greece, Christians started utilizing this bird as a sort of symbol for Christ and the resurrected Christ and that ability. But it's also been associated with things like the Virgin Mary, heavenly paradise, and has been used as a symbol multiple times in Christian lore. In, I think it's Hesiod, another ancient Greek person, was writing about the phoenix. He wrote that in a story, Chiron, this centaur, was teaching Achilles about all sorts of things. And in one of his lectures, he talks about the phoenix, and in that lecture talks about how the phoenix can outlive 9 ravens. So that's the length of its life, is the span of 9 raven lives. It's a weird way to approach it. And then he goes on to say that nymphs actually live 10 times the length of a phoenix. So interesting stuff if you really want to calculate it. But over the years, the phoenix has been depicted in a variety of ways. The more Christianization, you'll usually see some kind of halo or sun rays around its head or body. Though originally the colors and specific descriptions weren't really in depth. It was more often than not thought of being a very colorful, vibrant colored bird, depending again on the ancient Greek writers. Some wrote that the colorings were akin a little bit more to the peacock of today, and others were saying no, it was a red gold bird, which I think more often than not is how we attribute phoenix in more modern day fantasy. Is kind of a red hue, gold hued, maybe even orange, just again reflection of fire and flames. and its life cycle. Some descriptions have been that they had these yellow gold legs with rose-colored talons on the tips, and the phoenix, again, depending on who's writing about it, will be described being the size of maybe like an eagle, which is still a very large bird, all the way to being a creature that's even larger than the ostrich, which is the largest living bird we have today. So on the larger side of avian species. And again, it's just this kind of iconic character, this creature has been utilized over and over and over, again and again, everything from Dante and the Divine Comedy to Shakespeare to Harry Potter, and we see the phoenix live again and again and again in modern fantasy. Now, if you have any questions about this or anything else, please let me know in the comments below or any of my social media. And until next time, everyone, Skål.